Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Around the Bird Bath. I'm your host, Dan Nerdall, and bringing to you tonight the third midweek recap, a Wednesday game this week, but kind of unofficially calling these episodes turning Tuesdays. Most of the games are on Tuesday and just wanted a catchy name to go with it. But anyway, recapped a very exciting, very dominating win, 21-4 UTSA over Tarleton State. Felt good to get the rematch win from 2 weeks ago, and UTSA above 500. UTSA baseball above 500 for the first time since opening weekend. Now 7-6 and looking really good, winning their last 4 of 5, moving into a weekend series against a Corpus Christi team that record-wise, 7-8, a game below 500, but had a win against Texas State in the midweek game. So don't want to sleep on them. If you're a Patreon member, then you had the opportunity to listen to my maybe not yet, but you'll have the opportunity to listen to my series preview of the Islanders and what to expect and what to look for with that matchup. But I have a guest this week to discuss the Tarleton game, and we talk about this in the episode, but he is on Twitter as T.Texas Tony Turnstile, kind of a stage name, and pumps out a lot of baseball content, and he talks a little bit about that towards the end of the episode and how to follow along with what he does with the other member of his team, Chattahoochee, Texas, Dutch Chattahoochee. So definitely check out their stuff and their content. But first came across T.Texas Tony Turnstile's account last year, following along the Seguin River Monsters. He does a lot of content for them during the summer and had a lot of Roadrunners playing for Seguin and in the TCL in general. So, would track a lot of his stuff throughout the summer and reached out and just said, hey, if you want to come on, he loves baseball. He's pumps out a lot of content, as I mentioned, and familiar with some of the current Roadrunners. So really enjoyed the episode, really enjoyed talking to him, and he brings a great perspective. He played a little college baseball, a little independent baseball. But before we cut over to that segment, I want to take a moment and just thank our board of trustees and big money donors. First, the board of trustees on Patreon, Digiteek, John Outwell, Lino Perez of Los Dos Rowdy Tailgates, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, Brandon Grell and the Grill Realty Group, Andy Elizalde and the Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and SYCR LLC, Ryan Squires, Waterman Construction, Javon Townsend, VP of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, UTSA Annual Giving, and Artisan Vapor and CBD. And of course, our big money donors, Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Esperqueta and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavidez, Jacob Cavazos, board president of the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Brandon Padron, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, and Home Field Apparel, where you can use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field, and you can get 15% off your first purchase or 10% off for returning customers. And that supports us at Alamo Audible and Jared and Adrian's partnership with the Dave Campbell's Texas Republic of Football. And I've been, getting more invested into the 11.7 college baseball podcast with those guys, largely run by Ben Upton. And they talk about home field every episode, and they're always showing other colleges that, every episode they show a different college that home field has a deal with and the merch options available. So I'm ready for UTSA to get home field, and I want UTSA to get home field. But I'm also ready to stop talking about wanting UTSA to get home field or home field to get UTSA. It's been a long day. Anyway, We'll take a quick Cumbia break, cut over to that segment with T.Texas Tony Turnstile, and aside from that, thanks for listening and thanks for your support. Birds up. All right, everyone, welcome back from the Cumbia break, and you are listening to Around the Bird Bath, episode 17, and have the new title now for these midweek breakdowns. We're calling them Turn-In Tuesdays, and it's appropriate, I guess, in true Alamo Audible fashion, that our first Turn-In Tuesday is actually recapping a Wednesday game, but nonetheless, a midweek, a rare Wednesday game, and have the pleasure of having a guest you may be familiar with and maybe following on Twitter without even really realizing it, but you can find him on Twitter as T.Texas Tony Turnstile, and known for covering the Seguin River Monsters and kind of a San Antonio local, so wanted to get him on, and knows a lot of the Roadrunners. But how are you doing tonight?
Man, Dan, I appreciate you having me on. I'm doing great. Big UTSA win, absolute shellacking. It's somewhat payback to Tarleton, but no, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on. And honestly, if you kind of prodded me because I was going to go to some games, but I was trying to coordinate it for maybe like a weekend series, and it was just the push I needed to get out and catch a Wednesday game. And man, we caught a big one. So thanks for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, no, glad to have it line up and get you on and hear your thoughts and just talk baseball. And you'll let us know this, but a lot of background of covering the sport in a variety of ways. And I mean, I joked on Twitter when I put the final score that it was a nail biter. After the bottom of the second, it was anything but. And so a high scoring night, a beautiful night for baseball. Once the sun started to go down, turned into a beautiful, spring South Texas evening. Did you see that? Getting off topic a little bit, did you see the score of the UIW Prairie View A&M game?
I didn't. This is our score was the only one I seen tonight, so I didn't see what
So
happened.
yeah, so UIW beat them 23-20.
Oh my God.
So something about San Antonio and the ball was flying tonight, and their game started at 2. So whatever wind was helping early in the Roadrunners game, it sounds like the Cardinals and Prairie View A&M had that same wind blowing down at UIW.
Man. Yeah, those games are crazy. The only one I had as a player back in the, and nobody needs to look up my old baseball reference because Turnstile is a stage name, much like Rodney Dangerfield. But at South Alabama, we played the Florida A&M, the Rattlers.
Yep.
Most unbelievable. I don't know how many home runs were. It was just back and forth. It was like 24-19 at the end of the game. You're just like, this can't keep happening. You can't keep jacking this many homers. But alas, those games, they pop up. This one was lopsided tonight, but a lot of good takeaways, I think, as you'll allude to. But yeah, good game to watch.
No, for sure. And that was the thing, so listeners are familiar, we played Tarleton 2 weeks ago and fell behind early, which UTSA was kind of making a habit of early in the season, came back, actually took the lead, and then it was 10-8, it's 10-10, and then Tarleton won it on a walk-off grand slam. So, the game was a lot closer than the score represented, and tonight it looked like it was going to be the same thing. UTSA gets off to back-to-back home runs, very first plate appearances, Caleb Hill and Alexander Olivo, and then top of the second, here comes Tarleton just smacking the ball. And you had a better view than I did. I was on the berm with my kids. You were kind of off to the side of home plate. Did it seem like to you that Ryan Beard might have been tipping pitches a little bit? Because it seemed like they were barreling him up really hard.
That's it. I couldn't say. I couldn't say if he was tipping as closely as I was watching his windup and the little things you do where you hold your glove or waggle your fingers and what they were onto. I mean, and that's like the beginning of the game didn't really tease you as to what kind of lopsided thing it was going to be, because then you go down 4-2, and honestly, the jam shot out to right, and then the one ball gets over Odom. So, and there was like the error at first base too. So the 4 runs was, I think he might have been only charged with like 2 earned runs in that inning. But then you're looking at a 2-4 ball game, and you're like, okay, this is maybe tighter. And then you come back, and I think it was the bottom half of 2. And then Zane Spin missed on a bunt, which was a kind of like, this might be a tight game.
Yeah.
We're playing for a run here. It's 4-2 or whatever, and we got to move these guys first and second, nobody out. We don't get it down. Who knew that it was going to explode into like a 20-run offense? But in that early on, I mean, there's a lot of at bats to like, and when you're seeing the guys hit the ball this hard, but Beard, I think he struck out the side in the first, and that happened more often than not in this game with UTSA pitching. The amount of, I think, 15 Ks they put up.
Yes, yeah.
Astounding, like just swing and miss rate. Love to see their data. I'm sure they're keeping it, but I mean, they were just sitting people down. But yeah, early on, like you said, that was interesting. You couldn't know. I don't know if Beard was tipping, but I think that from the, as a pitcher, like, dude, error at first, and the ball gets past my right fielder, and then a jam shot, and I get punished for it. Couple dudes hit a couple, like, they weren't cheap hits. They barreled up a couple, but not all of them were that way. And Beard looked really good in the first. So
yeah, and that was, he had a similar kind of outing last week against Houston. He had a really good first inning, was rolling in the second, and the good old classic baseball announcer jinx, the Houston broadcasters start talking about how good he's doing, then all of a sudden home run walk, and that was his evening, and they pulled him. And then tonight, as you mentioned, a really good first inning, second inning came out, and what's most interesting about the ball getting over Ty's head, and I think it was just with the way the wind was blowing, and he's got such good speed, probably just came in a little hard to read off the bat, and then he's a little shorter.
It did take a huge hop for, like, because you're charging on the play with runners, and it did take a big. I mean, I know probably as a right fielder, Ty's like, nah, dude, I got to make that play. We know that, but that was a huge hop, so it wasn't normal. And then, like you said, from Beard's perspective, he's like, I don't know, is it a different world if the first baseman makes that play and the jam shot out to right isn't flared as perfect placement? I mean, it's a 7-iron. I mean, it was so money, but like, if that gets flared just a little bit less, second baseman tracks it down easily, end of inning. So yeah, people are going to hit you hard sometimes. Was he tipping on it? I don't know. I think they were hitting fastball. The 2 hardest hit, I think, was just on fastball. So hitter's pitch.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. With that ball getting over Ty's head, it allows the fourth runner to score in the inning. But what it does is opens up third base. So then Tarleton tries, they're trying to be aggressive, and they probably knew, all right, UTSA is hitting the ball hard on us, so we need to try to get runs where we can. They try to steal third. Brock Palmer throws him out. That's out number 2. And then Fisher Kingsbury gets the strikeout swing, and just like that, you're out of the inning. But yeah, the Zane Spin bunt was interesting to me because, we know growing up playing baseball, it's always like, oh, 2 strikes, you're not bunting. And Coach Hallmark, wanted to, and it's still early in the season, so he's probably still trying to see, like, which guys can lay down bunts and everything, and get a feel for it. And Zane Spin, he didn't really play at all last year at Sam Houston, and I think he was limited through the fall. So definitely trying to get him some reps as well. But I was surprised to see him lay down a bunt with 2 strikes. Also, just because he's had such a good bat the last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's proven a point maybe sometimes to yourself, because the postseason in the conference tournaments, like, these are the 1-run ball games you got to have. You don't have the 4 homers. So, and this is a midweek game. So this is a game to prove the point to your players, like, get it down, So, you put it on and put the pressure on to get it down. Didn't happen, but probably a learning moment. Definitely defer to Hallmark there. Is a big fan of how he runs runs the team. And I like, on a side note, he got booked into the naughty list by the umpire for defending the Diego Diaz um, the strike call. But that was awesome. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
talk about that real quick because I was still on the burn for that, and I saw it, and it was, with the 4 o'clock start, there was a small enough crowd where you could kind of hear what was happening, and I heard him say like, I'm just trying to stick up for my guy. So did
yeah.
Diego get hit, and then he said he was leaning into it, or what happened
No,
there?
I think it was just, I mean, the game had gotten away. I mean, the maybe the distance and the runs was maybe we're up by 12. Like it was, so I don't know if the umpire is expanding the zone,
Yeah,
which is perfectly, that's not unheard of in a blowout. That what it was, but marginal strike call, and Hallmark was to the effect like, hey man, I'm this guy's working on laying off that pitch, so I'm glad he didn't swing. That's not a strike. And so something to the effect, I don't want to hear any lip about it. He's like, hey, I can say what I want. Like I'm defending my guy. That's a good layoff. So that's kind of was the back and forth. But then the ump's like, I'm going to step to the side, pull out my naughty list, like English Premier League or whatever. And I don't know what he calls the league on that. Like I got my feelings hurt or what, but it's Hallmark just standing up for his guys, marginal pitch. But
yeah.
again, probably a 12-run game at that point, so corners are going to get fat. But
I
I mean,
I think it's just if anything, he's jotting it down to, so he's like, hey, I've already given him a warning, and then if Coach Hallmark gets
it's just a
chirpy
yellow
again.
card.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because over the weekend against Grand Canyon, Coach Hallmark was chirping at the home plate umpire, and you could actually hear the home plate umpire say, "That's enough," and it's like, okay, like, and I'm surprised. I mean, I think last year, the Texas State game at the Bird Bath in April I think that was the first time last season that Coach Hallmark got tossed, and there's been a couple times this season where I was like, we might have the first Hallmark toss for the year, and it hasn't happened yet.
Good.
And
Great.
but they do get a little leeway because last year after the Texas State game, he said, I think I stopped before before I'll get a suspension. I didn't go too far or you know chirp at him
But it's good
too
that I
hard.
think he's establishing the line. Like
Yeah.
if you think you're going to call a bad game, you're going to get an earful. So
Hmm.
be on top of it, and that's a good tone to set with guys coming into the bird bath. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and he's a catcher by trade. He caught at Rice. He played 11 years in the minor league
Nice.
system, so he knows the strike zone. And catchers are always the ones that get upset when the strike zone is inconsistent because
Yeah, and the
they see
one
it. And
thing, if for people who really want to deep dive on Hallmark, look at his minor league stolen base stats for a catcher. He stole a lot of bases for a minor league catcher.
yeah,
That's the one thing that stuck out when I was looking up his stuff. But anyway, that's what it was. Nothing here nor there. But Hallmark being a Hallmark, it was cool.
yeah. And real quick, I mean, let's get a little bit more into your background with the Seguin River Monsters. We'll call this a little bit of an intermission, but I think it's appropriate. Um, you know what? Because there was a lot of Roadrunners that played last summer down in Seguin. Even some guys that weren't Roadrunners last year but have transferred in. Hector Rodriguez, Zach Longshore. Did you
Yeah,
interact with Coach Hallmark at all, or you kind
I
of
didn't.
because
The
okay,
ownership gets to talk to him. I
yep,
think I talked to Pat one time a couple years ago when I was like trying to do like NIL interviews with like Luke Malone and Sammy Diaz, and we did one with like Tapia and Kang when I was going to be the superstar baseball content maker, yada yada, with like 9 listeners. But for me, it's fun. Like I'm like interested in as like a college baseball player. I love talking to these guys about baseball. So I said, hey. Pat, I'm going to talk to some of your dudes. And then I think I saw him at the birdie thing. So he's been great. I don't really talk to him that much or interact with the coaches for the Seguin River Monsters as I'm mainly working the broadcast booth and the play-by-play. When we do home wins, I throw on the green blazer and get to do post game with the players. But a lot of UTSA Roadrunners running through the River Monsters organization as well as the TCL in general. Like Braylon Owens, like 1 1/3 innings pitch, struck out 4. That's like what he looked like in the TCL,
yeah,
and like the Fisher King, as I call him, like just nasty, like, and that's what he came in for the River Monsters and did when they went on the championship runs. Like, dude, I don't think people can pick up that ball, and he's got a fastball and a hard cutter, and it's like, dude, you better get up. You better like be sitting fastball because you're not going to get there on some of these guys. And Ruger Riojas was like, I was talking before the game, I was like, this is like Mariano Rivera. It's like, dude, you could know what's coming. It's not going to help.
Yeah.
So it's a ton of fun. Longshore was awesome starting pitcher for the Seguin River Monsters, and just like the whole bunch of dudes came through that league that were really good. I'm just like looking at the Daniel Garza, total stud. I mean, all these guys. Lizzie Quiroga went tonight. I can't like there's just a ton of guys, and the TCL's coming up. There's another team this year out in Lake Charles. So, and if you look at the JUCOs, these guys go to like Bossier City and stuff like that. That end up in these teams. That's where half of the UTSA JUCO guys. Like everybody knows everybody. So
Yeah. Were there any Tarleton players tonight that stuck out, or you kind of knew from summer ball or just previous seasons?
I didn't recognize any of the Tarleton guys to be perfectly frank. I could see that a couple of them went to JUCO with guys that would show up in the TCL, like went to, I think it was like New Mexico Junior College and some of those other guys. But the guy that stood out was Chris Enriquez, who they had batting in the six holes at DH. I mean, I got there. I tried to get there early so I could see infield, outfield, and watch a little bit of BP. And I got there for BP, and I was like, that guy's barreling it. And he went 3 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
So he swung it good. But just trying to just cope with UTSA arms was too much tonight. Like the dudes were just dealing. It was nice to see. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of like, and I'm sure you're gonna get to it, but like some of the ABs that the Roadrunners are putting up, phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and it's refreshing because the season the opening day was just they got down. I mean, it was 9-0 at one point. They come all the way back. They lose 10-9 to UT Arlington, but then they have some real kind of just like stagnant offense and just some low scoring. They lose a couple games where they're getting like 4 runs combined and just having a hard time finding the offense. And, last week against Houston, it was looking like another like, oh boy, they're down Big 12 school, and then come storming back in Roadrunner fashion. And then since that Houston win, they've now won 4 of the last 5. They've had 2 very comfortable wins. They beat Grand Canyon 12-0, beat Tarleton tonight 21-4. And the last thing I want to say before we get into a little bit of the stat line, it definitely seemed like, I mean, because Coach Hallmark played the starters until like the 7th inning. They didn't agree on a run rule before the game. So he definitely wanted this one. I think he wanted his players, and I'm taking a little bit of my own opinion on this one, but I think he wanted his players to be like, hey, like 2 weeks ago, that should not have happened. We need to remind these guys, like, who we are. We need to show this conference who we are, the AAC, as we're getting ready for conference play. And the bats are coming alive too. So of course that helps. But you could definitely see how he approached the game. Whereas Tarleton, like if you look at their box score, it seemed like once it started to really get away from them, they started kind of rotating some guys out. They took Howell out. They took Mason Hammonds out. And they took their left fielder out. And maybe that's also just to get some guys some at bats. It's a Tuesday game, but
Yeah.
it seemed like there was two different storylines there for how the coaches wanted to approach the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I think probably from Tarleton's side of it, it was so far out of hand. It was like reps
Yeah.
at this point. Like get these guys that maybe aren't starters some looks at some good pitching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took out some dudes early on, like Brandon Howell, I don't know if I had it. Yeah, he was because he was the first baseman. And he cut a throw from the outfield that cost them a run. And that's when the game was close, like in the second. I was like, ooh. But I mean, there are a few mistakes on both sides, but it was like you said, it was the bats. It was Hallmark making a statement game like, dude, you guys need to impose your will I mean, I'm a believer. Like this is who you are. Those are some difficult at bats to navigate through the lineup. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and Howell, I mean, he was the one 2 weeks ago that was kind of why UTSA lost to Tarleton. He had two home runs, one from the right, one from the left, a 2-run, and then the walk-off grand slam. Not as good of a game. And outside of that second inning for Tarleton, I mean, I think they had 5 hits through the first 2 innings and only 7 hits total. So, UTSA really shut them down the rest of the way.
Yeah.
What did you see of the pitchers? So, I mean, you mentioned Braylon Owens and Yuli. He had his best outing of the season, just his second appearance, but went 2 2/3. Who did you see from the 6 guys they threw out there that kind of impressed you the most?
Oh, as far as Tarleton guys,
For UTSA.
oh, for UTSA, Kingsbury is always an intriguing thing to me. And I don't know if it was the wood bat summer, but I mean, he was perfectly fine with just harder, and hardest. You know what I'm saying? Like he would just come at you. He'd cut it in on your hands and stuff like that. But he broke off some pretty good change of pace breakers tonight, which I didn't see as much in the summer. I mean, like
Mhm.
you'd be out in front of that. So I mean, that's tough to deal with. I mean, that's a good 10 to 15 mile an hour change of pace between his breaking ball and his hard stuff. And he throws a real hard like slider or cutter in there. I don't know what that is, but I mean, you could tell some guys, and I'm trying to look at how many Ks he had. He had 4 strikeouts in 1 2/3. So it's like four, like, and I could see in some of the at bats, dudes are like, okay, is he going to go to the slider? Like you're waiting for the off speed to happen, and you're just late on the heat. Like you're like, it's never coming. Like he's just going to keep giving you cheddar. Yuli looked great. Braylon Owens, like huge lead. He came in and like walked the first guy. He was just disgusted. And then he just turned into what he looked like for the Victoria Generals.
Yeah.
Like just dealing. You're just not like, and he's around the corners too with good velocity. So I mean, really liked what I saw. Drake Smith had good stuff. Beard, like I said, could have gone a different way. You have one bad inning, doesn't mean that's what your stuff was. I mean, you struck out the top of the order like going away, like didn't have a chance. So, um, I mean, the staff in a game like that, the 4-run inning, which was maybe only a 2-run inning with a couple of hard singles. I mean, all the arms rolled. And Herbacek I hadn't seen. Herbacek struck out 2, I think, in 1 in the 8th. So he gets a weak ground out to second and then fans the next 2 guys. So I liked Herbacek. I mean, what's not to like with everybody we rolled out there? I mean, they were
Yeah.
just looked like Nolan Ryan, just blowing people away.
Yeah, and Cooper Herbacek, he's new this year. He came in from McLennan Junior College, Abilene, Texas. So it'll be interesting next Tuesday as UTSA plays Abilene Christian at the Bird Bath. If that game is any nostalgia or anything special for him, but he's kind of had this, like, I think he's had 3 appearances now. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
I know he's had at least 3 because I remember he came in against UT Arlington and looked real sharp, and then came in against Grand Canyon to finish it out last Friday night, and it was already 12-0, but struck out the side, and it kind of got washed under even a little bit by myself because it was already 12-0, game's already over. You're getting off to a real good start against a good whack team like the Lopes. But then tonight again comes in the 8th inning, and we're all kind of wondering, like, all right, are they going to run rule? Are they going to run rule? Bob in the seventh inning stretch. All right, we're playing a full 9.
Yeah.
And so Cooper comes in and gets an opportunity to throw the 8th. And yeah, I mean, and he looked so good in those 2 strikeouts. I had to ask the person next to me, I was like, did he just strike out the side? And it's like, no, he had the 4-3 put out for the first out. But yeah, he's got some really good stuff. And it seems like, there's some times where the guys get hit hard, and they've definitely given up the home run ball a little more than I'd like at this point in the season. But when they're on, they're looking real good. And if they can get Yuli healthy or can continue to get him healthy, Braden Davis is another one they're working back. He was out all last year for Tommy John.
Mhm.
They could be set up for some really good depth on their pitching staff.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the arms and velo is there. That's, but that's not all of it. That's why I like a lot of the staff in Fisher, ability to pitch up in the zone. I mean, this is like, the Verlander, Madison, Baumgartner, where you're dancing a fine line between like the letters and the neck to make it enticing to chase. I mean, these guys are 90s guys, but you make a mistake down in the zone and then it looks like one of those laser beams up the middle. So the ability to, work the corners, work down, but there's enough velocity with these guys, and you have veteran like Kingsbury's a senior. I mean, Owens, these guys have good experience to teach pitching and know how to move the ball around the zone and make you chase up, which is a skill. So yeah, I mean, I think they got the arms and they definitely got the bats from what I saw.
Yeah. All right. So let's finally get into that. If people are still listening, hopefully we've kept them waiting long enough. 21 runs, 19 hits, 18 RBIs, 4 home runs, second Tuesday or midweek game in a row where they've hit 4 home runs. Got off to a great start with the back-to-back. James Tausig hit a massive 3-run shot, and I watched the video from the broadcast that UTSA baseball tweeted out after, and it actually hit the bus.
It did hit the bus. That's what it
Yeah,
looks like, but you can't be sure at the stands.
yeah,
Like, I think he hit the bus.
yeah, and that's his third home run in 3 games. So we heard about his power coming into the season, and Coach Hallmark talked about his performance in the fall kind of earned him a starting spot. He's played mostly first base and right field this season with a little DH, but it seems like he's really starting to figure it out and find that power. 2 for 5 tonight, 3 RBIs, and then of course the fourth home run by number 4 Ty Odom, his first of the season. Great to see him healthy again after missing all second half of last season due to injury, and then he also got injured in the UT Arlington series and just came back against Grand Canyon. So what stood out to you in the lineup, and what did you see that you liked from any guys in particular?
This is like my favorite part. I love talking about hitting and watching guys' approaches, but so many stuff. I guess I'll start with Tossig because you featured him right there. Tossig, interesting. Like, he's a guy, like, I'm not a scout, but if I was like, that's a hands guy. Like, that dude has some amazing hands where he holds them, and his load and his ability to get his hands out on a fastball is unreal. Because he lined out to second, that probably would have hit, but you're shifting him deep. He absolutely just laser beamed that.
Mm-hmm.
But Tausig, like you said, looked really good, and that was a massive bomb. My other, like, there's so many favorite at bats, but Alexander Olivo, like Oppo Taco, was that was just a flex of manhood. Like, there's not a lot of lefties that just go on the other side of the batter's eye off of Oppo center. Like, that was such a bomb, and he did it again. He doubled in the gap Oppo. So it's just like, it's a rare bird. Like, pull power, that's great, dude. That's what we're getting out in front. You have full leverage, but a lefty who's letting the ball get that deep, and then you can hit a 400-foot homer on the other side of the batter's eye, like, and he's walking a lot, like, he's getting on base, and like, that's your 1-2 at the top of the order with him and Caleb Hill. That's petrifying. Like, he didn't chase a single bad pitch. Maybe, like, I can't remember it, but Olivo's at bats. He was on base every time except for the seventh. Home run, hit by pitch, base on ball, double. He got hit by pitch twice. So, I don't know if that's like the Harry Doyle where they just start blunking people when you're down by 20,
Yeah.
Major League or whatever. But like, Olivo's at bats, I really liked a lot. Caleb Hill is spectacular. Like, that dude is a really intriguing guy on many levels. I love that he's at the top of the lineup, but he's having a special year, and his leadoff home run was an absolute line drive. Like mere mortal, that's a line drive into right field over the second baseman. For Caleb Hill, he just lined it over the fence. Like he just absolutely roped it. Uh he had an interesting at bat. I'm trying to see, I check mark in the fifth inning and he walked, but they had in and I'm gonna say his name wrong, but Dominic Courgette was a lefty. So it was lefty matchup, and he could see that he like this was my guess because he broke off a curveball to Zane spin first pitch, and he was using that a lot on lefties. And it was a situation where Hill was like, "I'm just going to sell out. Like if he hangs me a curve, I'm just going to crush it like 500 feet." I think he was sitting curve, and he totally got it. It's just Courgette just bounced it. So it looked to me like Hill was all over. I was like, I love that dude's approach. He walks a lot. He hits for power. It loads up. I mean, he made two great plays in left. So I mean, good at bats all around. But I really like that he goes deep in the count because he went down in that and then worked it back to full count and drew the walk. So he got his money's worth on that first pitch curveball that he was sitting on. And yeah, they bounced it, but he battled back. And I think he was looking for a curveball that entire at bat, honestly, because he swung late on a fastball to make it like 1-2 or whatever. Then he fouled off a fastball late, and then he laid off a curveball outside and then eventually walked. But I was like, dude, that guy's hunting you down psychologically. So a lot of fun there. Diego Diaz for a freshman, man, showing a ton of maturity. Ty Odom missed the 2 home run game by about 3 feet, hitting one off the wall. So I mean, you got some dudes, man. I mean, Hector got in. Matt King had 2 singles. Parmer roped one in the second. I mean, everybody was crushed. Obviously, a 21 run game that's going to happen. Everybody's getting down on the ball. But I like the approach. I like that you're not chasing. I like you're walking a lot. And dudes are going up there with just savage mentalities to what that pitcher is showing and gaming it. Like this is what I'm looking for. So it was offensive explosion, absolute eruption, as I say.
Yeah, I mean six base on balls and then 5 hit by pitches. So 11 total plate appearances, reaches by either a walk or a hit by pitch. And I mean, sometimes the hit by pitch, it's a wild pitch. It gets the guy struggling, but you know, some of it's just also you're just trying to keep it so much off the plate and try to get a guy chase that it's also credit to the hitter and what he's doing at the plate. And you know, this is exactly why I'm here Wednesday evening at 9:00 doing a podcast, and Coach Hallmark is coaching the team, because I didn't love Caleb Hill at the leadoff spot when they first started putting him there. You know, he's opened the season at number 2. They put him down to 3 for a couple games, and I liked him there just because of his power. And if there's already a guy that can get on base, then it's harder to pitch around him from the opposing team standpoint. But at the same time, I mean, you know, like you mentioned, how he can draw a count back from 0-2 to full, how he can be patient at the plate. He's got great speed too, so he could even, you know, lay down a bunt and try to sneak a drag bunt in there, being a lefty. So he's got the ability to get on base, and then even with his speed on the base paths, he can really hurt you from a lot of places. And I think us fans, you know, it's his second year now. He started at Nichols, then went to Temple and came over here to UTSA. I think we've just kind of taken for granted his range in left field and just gotten so accustomed to it. Some of the plays he made last year, that he tracked one down, like as you mentioned, it just made it look like it was a routine can of corn. And
Yeah, they're both line drives. Like he had to
yeah,
get a good first step and run it down. So like, yeah.
and then Diego, I mean, that kid is special. True freshman. He flashes the leather. He's got a great glove at second base. I've heard some people say he might be, you know, he could be the next Matt King, what he brings in the field and at the plate. I mean, last weekend he went 4 for 4 and was a triple shy of the cycle, but he's the type of guy that he's got a little bit of power. And so with his speed and that mix, he could definitely, he's, you know, Olivo, it's going to be a lot harder for him to get a cycle because he's a bigger guy. Trying to find that triple in the stat line is going to be a little harder. But Diego, he definitely seems like the type of player that could find himself hitting a cycle at some point.
Yeah, I mean he's got a ton of tools, totally mature for a freshman, which you just in Division One is such a rarity. And to see him getting the reps that he's getting now, I can't wait to see what he looks like when he's like, a junior. But that dude can play. That guy's a ball player. Very impressed. Like Caleb Hill's stat line, I can see, but you gotta go to the bird bath and see these guys in person. I think that dude definitely translates to the next level. I think he has I don't think he is in any way intimidated or overmatched at a professional level. Like that dude has. It's because I will stop watching the pitcher and I'll watch a dude just swing and miss. Like you're like just like looking at bat speed and athleticism and his approach. And I was like, I mean, he works a good professional at bat, tremendous power, plays a good left field speed. Like a way, I'd love to see what his exit velos are, way above average bat speed. I mean, his stat line is what it is through whatever 12, 13 games. He's got like, 5 homers now and all these RBIs, but really very impressed with eyes on Caleb Hill and Alexander Olivo. I mean, low strikeout guy, high on base guy, lefty, letting the ball get deep in the zone. That's probably why he doesn't strike out because he's like, I know I have oppo power. Come to me. I don't have to lunge out in front and chase and commit. So, I mean, you have that kind of power in a left-handed bat at the top of your line. Because I think it's like the new sabermetrics, which I nerd out on, where they're like, dude, you want your best player to get the most at bats, So it's like you start putting Simeon and Seegers, like in the 2-hole, where in my mindset from the old days, like your best dude's always 3-hole, this and
Yeah.
that, these traditional lineups. But I mean, if you go Caleb Hill, Alexander Olivo, that's going to do a lot of damage. The extra bats those guys get over the course of the year. And I mean, Farmer, Lytle, I mean, in like Odom, Howard, dude. I mean, that's a 5'10" dude, and he's just launching rockets. So you have some bats there, and from what I'm seeing, pretty good discipline, which I think is the difference between dudes that are just hackers and as super athletic. And you get guys that can actually win you a ball game because they won't chase because you are going to face those nastier pitchers who can paint, and you got to be able to, like Olivo, go the other way, lay off on that pitch. So it was a shellacking, but also with some discipline at bats. So it wasn't just like a derby.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mason, I mean, he didn't hit a home run tonight, obviously. He's hit 2 so far, and both of the home runs he's hit this season, just absolute missiles. And for those listening familiar with the bird bath, I mean, home runs that probably cleared Chaparral Hall and cleared the net in left field, both of his. So he's coming around and missed last year due to injury. He was up at Oregon. Before that, he was at San Jack. And but he's another one, just has tremendous speed in center field, and I've seen him already this season track down some balls that were just like, holy cow. So you got, if you have Ty, Mason, and Caleb playing your outfield spots with the speed, in all 3 of those spots, and definitely some really good defense. And it'll be interesting because D1 baseball now, they're starting to partner more with 643 and make more of these advanced sabermetrics available to the subscribers, but they're starting to track like defense run saved and WAR and make that available. So definitely want to check in on those later on in the season when there's a little more metrics available. I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with Caleb Hill because he struck out in the 2nd inning with the bases loaded, and we needed just one more run to score to be eligible for the $888 one fan could have won for 8
I
runs
didn't
in an
realize
inning.
that.
So yeah, that's something new
He
they're doing this
batted
year.
twice in the 2nd inning. Yeah, okay. So he singled and scored, and then I think they got him on a breaking ball.
Yeah, and it was a nasty pitch. The catcher even drops it, and then he just steps on home plate because there was a force anywhere. But yeah, I was like, all right, I know you hit a home run and you hit, had some other good plate appearances too, but you couldn't have repositioned those walks somewhere else so that we could have been eligible for a big pot of money. But
Man, oh man, yeah.
I guess the win will suffice.
Yeah, no, that was a great game by the Birds there, all the way around. It's totally dominant pitching and hitting. So, and that's a feel good game. Like if like say like you're padding your stats due to the player, that feels awesome, dude. Roping the ball around the park, everybody's going off. I mean, the character of a college baseball season, because you find out stuff in the fall, but you're finding like Hallmark and his staff is finding out stuff now, and dudes are getting confidence built from a game like that, or they're learning stuff about their swing or whatever. But I mean, it's a wide arc to what you're going to be at the end of the year. But if hot taking just on a Wednesday game and looking at the ability that's on the field, the like the head where their heads are at as far as discipline, plate discipline, and things like that, I thought that was good. I mean, it's hard. Like, I mean, if we're truly being, you know, anal media people, like, yeah, there's a foul ball dropped, I think, by Matt King. You missed a bunt. Nothing's perfect. It's not a perfect game. There's always stuff that you can work on and improve on, and you're not going to beat everybody by like 17 runs. But when you do, that feels awesome. So, good game by the Roadrunners. That was great.
Yeah, 100%. And that's how I was going to kind of close it out here. Just a couple takeaways you thought if we could, separate ourselves from the excitement of the big win, and you covered that obviously with the bunt and the drop. Um, and of course, individually there's some guys that definitely are going to want and that's baseball, right? Like for the most part, you still find a way even when you're scoring every inning. You're scoring multiple runs every inning. Even the pass ball and the Tarleton catcher doesn't see it, and two
Yeah.
runners score on it. Like you still find a way to make 27 outs, and both teams still find a way to make 27 outs, unless there's a run rule. But so like not everyone's gonna get a hit. At some point, the laws of baseball and the laws of nature are gonna take place, but individual like takeaways, some guys are definitely gonna have some things to work on moving into the weekend series against Corpus Christi, who they just are coming off a big win themselves, beat Texas State last night.
Yeah.
So Tuesday midweek games are weird. College baseball is weird. We'll see what happens this weekend. Before we get out of here, I want to give you a chance just to kind of plug where people can find, because you're pumping out a lot of baseball content in the summer, throughout the fall, and everything. How can people kind of track what you're doing and follow along and support you?
Man, I appreciate that, Dan. Yeah, I mean, me and Dutch Chattahoochee, as he's known, we do some pretty weird, unprofessionally produced baseball content. Best site. We do a podcast as like us and 37,000 other people in America. So it's one of those podcasts like 30 people listen to. It's just a couple dudes who love baseball, talking baseball, and I mean, we'll talk about anything from mental health. And my 1-year-old who was homesick. I saw you at the ballpark with your kids. So my 1-year-old was in the last podcast on our channel. But if you just like YouTube 3BGB, you'll see it. We got some weird stuff up there. We do like some baseball comedy sketches, and then we broadcast the Seguin River Monsters game, which is like a paywall for TCL TV, but that thing sometimes has issues. I'm not sure, but a lot of the teams will broadcast on their own channel. So we put them up on 3BGB because we have access to that channel. I don't know if we're going to make a Seguin River Monsters YouTube channel this year or whatever, but we try to broadcast all the home games, and then we just do sketches and podcasts. But yeah, 3BGB, you can probably find the link. I think it's under my Twitter profile. But I'm just a regular Joe, like you and everybody else that loves baseball and is rooting for the Roadrunners. And yeah, I mean, I'm just saying to the dudes, if they ever do listen to this, it was like, dude, believe in yourselves, believe that you are that team, just like the Red Sox back in the day. Like, why not us? Guys, you are an above average elite Division I baseball team, and you got the horses. Believe in yourselves. The sky's the limit. That's a scary team. Those are scary arms coming out of the bullpen. I mean, you think you're like some SEC kind team going to regional, and you got to face the Braylon Owens and the Ruger Riojas. and you got to pitch to Caleb Hill, okay, and Olivo and the rest of these dudes like Posick, like that ain't a cakewalk.
Yeah.
So I liked how scary that team was tonight. I'll say that. You gotta believe it though.
Yeah. So, getting back to your YouTube channel, because I know you're, I don't want to say older, but you're not, fresh out of college, obviously.
Oh, I'm an old one.
Did you ever catch the Froggy Fresh videos back in the day?
No.
Oh, that's kind of the same approach. It's just like some just goofy sports videos on YouTube, and there's one where he's called Froggy Fresh, and he's got a video like, you just got dunked on. It's like, why is James crying? Because he just got dunked on.
Yeah,
Like when I see
it's
y'all's videos,
actually
that's what I think of. But good stuff. You know, um, T.Texas Tony Turnstile on Twitter. Handle is BMB underscore baseball, and 3BGB on YouTube. Thank you again so much for coming on. Glad to make this happen. Any final takeaways, any final thoughts before we sign off?
no, but I guess that's kind of a riddle. The 3BGB came because me and Dutch like punk music, and CBGB's was like the epicenter of punk. And so we cover punk albums sometimes like that, but we also like the DIY mindset of just do it yourself, get baseball content done. But that's any support is great, but we're just mainly having fun with it. As far as the Roadrunners, just impose your will painfully on the other teams as you go through the season, dominating and crushing people's will, and believe that you are the College World Series team that you are.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Um, well, so we'll wrap it up there, folks. Thanks for listening. Depending on when you're listening to this, UTSA has a 3-game series on the road down in Corpus Christi. They are back at the Bird Bath next Tuesday against Abilene Christian, and then they'll play a weird 3-game series against Northwestern from Big Ten Northwestern. No Friday game, a doubleheader on Saturday, and then the wheels. I mean, it's just nonstop. Texas State and San Marcos, and then conference play with ECU coming to town. So a lot of good games, a lot of good opportunities for this team to continue to show who they are and continue to just kind of figure themselves out. But it looks like, at least from tonight and the last few nights, they're definitely starting to get all that figured out and going in the right direction.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Dan, to you and Elmo Onwell for having me.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on, and everyone else, have a good night. Birds up.
All right.